New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name is Dr. Tracy Brown, and I am with you today on the Science of Mind and Spirit Saturday Morning Conversation series. Whew, that's a mouthful. And just in case this is your first time connecting with us here, there is a team of us, and one of us shows up every Saturday morning to hang out with you and to dive into the core foundational principles of science of mind and talk about it. Find out how it relates to you or what nugget of wisdom we can use each week. And during the first 7.5, 8 months of the year, we actually use the Science of Mind textbook and go through it chapter by chapter and summarize it and refamiliarize ourselves with the wisdom, the universal spiritual wisdom as shared with us by Ernest Holmes. And then from mid-August through the end of the year, we dive into the Science of Mind Library and Archives and look for nuggets that allow us to continue to tap in to the wisdom of Ernest Holmes and others in ways that help us really understand the science of mind faith, the science of mind philosophy, and the science of mind way of life. So good morning, Shay, and good morning, Anita, and good morning again to all of you who are out there on the different channels. One of the great things about this show and New Thought Media Network in general is that for most of our shows, we are streaming live to YouTube, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to Instagram, to different platforms. And so, no matter what platform you are on, you can use the comment section or the chat, and you can say hello. You can ask a question. You can add to the wisdom. And so feel free throughout our time together this morning to participate in that way. So we're very serious about you can leave a comment, you can ask a question. And for what I'm going to share today and for really the rest of the year, any of the things we talk about, you can find at the Science of Mind Archives. Go to scienceofmindarchives.com and simply do a search. So, what are we talking about today? I do have a pattern. I don't think I intended to create this pattern, but yesterday I noticed that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be leading the conversation tomorrow. And what's the date? November 1st. Oh, let's go to a past edition, a November edition of Science of Mind magazine, and see what we can find there. Now, I don't know why I chose November 1945. I don't really know why I chose 1945, but I did. And so I pulled up the November 1945 issue of the Science of Mind magazine. And that is what it looks like. Science of Mind magazine helps you find yourself. And the featured articles in this issue were The Eternal Power Within by Ralph Waldo Trine and Messenger of Joy by Gordon LeClaire. What Started God Creating by Edgar White Burrell, The Cosmic Flash, Hope Gould Robinson, That Personal Problem by Daniel Boone Herring, After Victory, What? Vesta E. Brown, and Meditations, the daily meditations, what we now call the Daily Guide for Living, that this particular month were written by Ernest Holmes. And, there's so much that made me smile just looking at the cover, right? Across the top, the 18th year of publication. And in less than 2 years, we'll be saying the 100th year of publication. I mean, imagine. It makes me take a deep breath. And that at 18 years of providing this magazine, compared to 98 years of offering this magazine, it's like I'm sure 18 seemed like a major accomplishment then. And now we look back and think that was so long ago. Just a little visual of the contents page that you can see. It's probably too small for you to see online, but it lists, some additional contributors, and it shares how you can purchase it and just kind of the history of it. So let's see what else I want to share with you before I go to one of the articles. I do want to again repeat that you can find this issue of the magazine in the Science of Mind archives. Just go to scienceofmindarchives.com and then put in November 1945 or 1945, and you'll see all the issues. And then you can also be have access to other issues of the magazine. So there are a couple of articles I do want to highlight, but how in most magazines, the editor, the managing editor, uh, will generally, or the publisher, one or the other, will have a comment at the beginning and kind of tell you what's in the magazine. And I think one of the reasons I did choose this was when I read this opening, it like really made me think about a lot of things then and a lot of things now. So she starts off with, just as the October issue went to press, we were filled with joy of the news that the war had ended. This meant so much to the entire world, and it means specifically something to the Science of Mind magazine. And what struck me was really thinking about what was going on during those times. Like, when someone reads or refers to the Science of Mind magazine in 2025, 50 years from now, that I hope that they will think about the fact that there is war in the Middle East. I hope they will think about what is happening and showing up as political polarity within the United States. I hope they will have some context about, when this magazine was actually published, this is what was going on in Canada or Mexico or Africa or Europe or in the world. What were the important issues? What were the important conflicts? What were the important achievements of the time? And it made me think about, without judging, just think about in Science of Mind magazine today. Obviously, the magazine is planned out months in advance. The themes are planned out 18 months in advance for the whole year, and the content goes to be printed, 2 months in advance. And so it's not a news magazine. But when you're talking about trends in the world and the context that people are reading the magazine in, how are we bringing the philosophy forward in the context of the world affairs that people are impacted by in their daily lives? So we teach universal spiritual principles that we can use, as many of you have heard me say over and over and over again. Our spiritual practices are not designed to help us escape from the human experience, but instead to navigate the human experience. And so, how are we navigating what is going on in the world today? I think that is a really important question for us to think about and to keep in mind when we're reading the current magazine. And all of that to say, I really hadn't thought about, World War II, 1945. like what was going on, what had been going on. And so anyway, I love that at the beginning of the editor's introduction to this issue of the magazine, that she writes that, oh, this is a November issue. As we were going to press for the October issue, we got the news that the war had ended, and that um, that was important to start with. She also then does bring it back to the specific things that now that the war has ended, the magazine can return to doing some things that it had been doing before the war, and it can expand the magazine because apparently there was it says, I'll read what it says. While trying to cooperate with the government in every possible way related to the conservation of paper. So the magazine continued to publish, but reduced certain features and reduced the size of the magazine to conserve paper. And then she says, beginning with the January issue, the magazine will show many evidences of expansion, which we know will bring joy to you as well as to us. So let's see which there. I wasn't planning to stop there. Let's get to. There's an editorial, so not just the introduction to the magazine, but there is a very, very long editorial about Thanksgiving because, right, it's the November issue. And I'll just share with you how it starts. It's longer than most editorials, which tend to be one page. Sometimes in the Science of Mind magazine, might be a little bit longer than that. But this one, I think, was 3 pages. So it's about Thanksgiving. Let's see if I can share that. Yes. Thanksgiving is the greatest This is the greatest Thanksgiving in history. At last, the frightful debacle of war is ended. At last, the world over, mothers whose sons are still alive can sleep the night through in the blissful thought that imminent danger to the lives of their sons has been removed. Sweethearts can plan again for a home and husband, and thousands in devastated countries dying from starvation may hope to be fed. Hope comes anew to the world. Second paragraph. Even while our hearts are singing with gratitude, we are not unmindful of the responsibility of the atomic bomb. We are fully conscious that the hope of the world lies in the ascendancy of spiritual values. This can only come when man or humanity comprehends that within ourselves there is a spiritual power, a bomb, if you will, of greater potential power than all the atomic bombs that can ever be manufactured. This can only come as humanity understands that truth is universal, as we understand the eternal givingness, the eternal beneficence of God, only as we understand that there is no individual good, but always an individualized good. Only as we realize the eternality of life, the fatherhood of God, and the brotherhood of man. I am thinking about taking this editorial, even though it's pretty long, and sharing it widely, because while we are not in a declared war like World War II or World War I, there is so much about how we are engaging with each other in the world that is basically the same energy, the same challenges. And I love that in the editorial, it, only takes two paragraphs to get to the point of the importance of the ascendancy that our spiritual beliefs and our spiritual principles ascend. And I kind of like that um, reference or that use of, well, there's the atomic bomb. And what if we thought about the universal spiritual truth as igniting a bomb of truth? Now, the metaphor doesn't quite work because in our current way of understanding bomb, we think of destruction. We don't just think of something exploding, or we think of something exploding and being destructive. And I'm intrigued with the idea of thinking about something exploding that is constructive, something exploding that is life giving, something exploding that expands exponentially good, the good that is available to us. And like in my head, as I see the bomb and then the smoke or the gas going everywhere, and ask that question, what if that could be love? What if that could be a bomb exploding unity and harmony versus destruction? So I'm going to be thinking about that after today's show. I'm not going to get totally distracted by it right now. But this editorial goes on. I'll share with you a couple of lines from it because I do think in this issue it's really worth this issue. I will choose one article, but this time I was like, no, I want to highlight different things in this issue because this is an issue that, with the times we're in, might be a really good issue to download from the archive site and read. So another section of the editorial, well, let me share that too, I guess, and just in case you're on a full size computer and can expand it. Even at this early date, while the horrors of war are so fresh in our minds, we wish to erase as quickly as possible the memory of its atrocities, the pain in our personal losses, and the distrust of humanity in general. All nations have called upon their people to fight for a dream of a better world. Our business now is to make them see that the only dream worthwhile is not a dream of conquest, but a dream of cooperation. Wow. A dream of conquest going away and being replaced by a dream of cooperation. I love that. And I don't think that that's so completely, I don't think it's unimaginable at all. But we talk so much about conquest. We must win. We must get what we want. We are better than them. Fill in the blanks. Conquest, we're the conqueror. That we need to speak more about what it looks like when we cooperate so that people can begin to imagine and have a vision for what it looks like when we are bringing spiritual principle forward and cooperating and collaborating with others to generate that instead of a power hierarchy that means I am the conqueror over another group of people. So maybe that's too much to ask, but I love that it's here in this editorial. Um, could we but learn, quoting, could we but learn that all important lesson, that in all things, in every circumstance, minor and important, there is something for which to be thankful. We should then have mastered the first step in a technique guaranteed to lead to the use of the spiritual power of appreciation in changing unwanted conditions and producing a state of affairs that will bring happiness and spontaneous thanks. Now, um, I guess one of the reasons I like this paragraph is because it does remind us that the editorial is about Thanksgiving, right? But it's an editorial, so it is framing the importance of being thankful, the importance of Thanksgiving in and within the context of what is going on in the world today. And um, if you know me, you know that's really important to me, that I am frequently asking the question, okay, so why is that important now? What is going on now? What principle can we use and bring forward so that we can go through whatever is happening in our individual lives and in the world today? Like, make it make sense and make it real or relevant. That's not just an idle thought to me. I think it's really important as we are applying spiritual principle. Um, make it relevant. What's going on connected to that? So I think that the editorial in this issue, while it is very long, it does keep weaving in and out. There's war happening in the world, and there was and now we've declared an end to the war, and we can be happy about that, but we don't want to ignore the fact that it's if we want a long-term solution, we must apply spiritual principles so there will be war no more. And as you and I know, of course, there has been war since, multiple times and multiple forms involving multiple countries, locked in this pattern of divisiveness, locked in this pattern of hatred, locked in this pattern of being power hungry, locked in this pattern of conquering rather than cooperating or collaborating. And so I could be depressed about that, or I could be reminded that principle is not bound by precedent, and it is relying on what you and I and millions of other people do now to express the cooperation, to seek the collaboration, to demonstrate unity and love and harmony. So, back in 1945, we did not lose our way. And geez, this editorial is so good, because then she goes into the Bible and she brings out some of the examples in the Bible that undergird the principle. And then she comes back to the final paragraph: a knowledge of science of mind, a knowledge of the science of mind, giving us a better understanding of the truth of being, frees us from condemnation, fear, and resentment. We no longer stand at the crossroads of resistance and doubt. The spirit God has given us is illumined by God's spirit, God's word, God's truth, which dissolves every vestige of darkness. We can, if we but will, brighten the darkest hour of the darkest day by the potency of our tonic of thanksgiving. There is no better time to begin than now. Maud Allison Latham. I love it. We can, if we but will, brighten the darkest hour of the darkest day by the potency of our tonic called Thanksgiving. What if our Thanksgiving, our giving thanks, what if being grateful, what if we thought of it as the tonic? We don't even hear that word very much anymore, tonic, but as the medicine for all that is going on in the world, bringing thanksgiving, bringing gratitude in as the tonic. And today is November 1st, so it is the perfect time in the United States for us to be thinking about, oh, this month we celebrate Thanksgiving, and it is time to really increase. I was going to say really up our game, but really increase our not just commitment to, what word do I want to use? Yeah, not just our commitment to being grateful and to giving thanks, but to demonstrate it. Because sometimes our commitment is invisible, right? Until we show it in our behavior. Our commitment, we're committed in our heads because we know it is important and we think it's good. Or we're committed in our hearts because we believe it's good and we know it makes us feel good to be grateful. But if we get beyond what we think it's good, we feel it's good and important, to we do good. So maybe that's Tracy's editorial on top of Maud Latham's editorial about now is the perfect time to not only be grateful and to show appreciation in our individual daily lives, but to do that in a way that leads to thanksgiving, giving of thanks for life itself and for how we engage with one another um, worldwide. So, editorial. We're talking about the November issue, November 1945 issue of the Science of Mind magazine. And of course, because it's November, there is a heavy theme on Thanksgiving, and this was right after World War II ended, and so there's a focus on that as well. And Shay says, my gratitude is the tonic for healing all. Amen, sister. Right? That, whew, gratitude for all that is, and really gratitude for all that could be. I often think about how grateful I am that I personally have access to universal spiritual principles that help me navigate my life. And then I'm, grateful that I'm willing and able to share those principles with you and with so many others, and that the Science of Mind movement has the ability not to make everyone in the world know and practice science of mind, but to spread the message that we teach in Science of Mind so that people can live a life where they honor themselves and they believe that they can achieve things. And of course, that we can work together with people who are different from us. So it's like so much of what we teach in Science of Mind absolutely can shift the energy of competition and enmity or hatred based on categories that are humanly defined. It's like, okay, let's stop that craziness. But now I would be going from my editorial to my soapbox, and I am not going to do that. I am instead going to look over here and advance to one of the articles. So just give me a second. Yes, okay, I think I highlighted a number of things in two articles. So the first article that I'm going to highlight, let's see, let me try something. Let's play with technology just a little bit. And see if it's still readable. Ah, it is. I was afraid if I made it this big that you would not be able to see it, but that is not the case. So that I thought it might get too fuzzy because obviously it's not freshly printed. So there's an article, and so the author of this article is Vesta E. Brown, and I don't know anything about Vesta E. Brown, but since I like her article, I'm going to say that Vesta Brown and Tracy Brown surely are related, right? Yes, surely. I mean, Vesta Brown, Tracy Brown. She's got to be brilliant, right? Anyway, this there are a number of articles again thinking about the fact that this issue of the magazine was already in being formed before the war had ended, um, and was being finalized right after the announcement that the war had ended, and so um, and so this article, probably replaced, or maybe not, based on how she offered it, she may have already written it. But after victory, what? And I love this question because so often, like if we're in conflict with others, or even when in the United States today, and there's a major election, people are so focused on winning, on conquering the others, of being the victor. And there's hardly any focus on, okay, so their promises, right? If you elect me, I will win. And these are the things I promise to do for you. But in general, we don't have a really clear image about what do we really want and how will that look after victory. Let's back up a little bit to simple situations where we ask someone to do a spiritual mind treatment for us, and we're telling them all of what's wrong that we want to change or we want to be changed in our lives or in our experience. And if you are familiar with spiritual mind treatment, you know that step 3 is all about describing what it looks like when the prayer has been answered. Like, what will you be manifesting? How will you be feeling? How will you be engaging with others? Who else is around? What do you have? How are you being the answer to your prayer? And so I love that this article basically asks the question, all right, so there's victory. Now what? And you can see probably most of you can see unless you're on a tiny, tiny screen. She starts with what shall follow after victory. Some say chaos. Some say international and internal. This is the challenge. Okay, let me take this off screen so that you're not getting dizzy while I try to get back to the place where we were. But I love that she starts this article with that question like, okay, so after victory, what? What shall follow after victory? Some say chaos, some say international and internal revolution, and some say peace. Any of these are a possibility. The actuality is within the power of each and every one of us. We, you, and me. We may decree a thing and it shall come to pass. The problem is we don't collectively, most of us, even individually, don't decree a thing. We don't declare and claim something specific. It's like, oh, there'll be peace. Yeah, what does that look like? How do we have to behave with one another in order to generate that peace, in order to birth collaboration between nations? Oh, a truce has been signed, so we will have peace. Well, it depends on what is in the truce and what the energy was as the truce was being formed. There were agreements, there were things that were negotiated in the truce. Are the things that were negotiated in the truce or to end the war, are they the things that are going to then lead in an ongoing way to expanded peace, to expanded cooperation, to expanded collaboration? And let me just back away for a minute from world affairs and invite you to think about in your personal life someone who irritates you, someone you don't get along with, someone you avoid, someone who maybe you have consciously and intentionally chosen not to engage with. Let's think about that as the equivalent of war. You're conquering them by avoiding them and by creating your own sense of peace and well being and pushing them away. And I'm not saying that's wrong because I do it too. I'm just making an observation about how we often navigate the world. We would say, I probably, if we compared that to world affairs, we could say, I have designed a truce, which is different from ending the war. So, no judgment. I'm just trying to think in real life about this question after victory, what? I think Vesta Brown wrote this in that context. How do we use our spiritual principles and take action that demonstrates or that is a model of applying spiritual principle, not political um, efficacy or political practicality to create the image of something, but how do we actually bring in our spiritual principles and have them be, like in the editorial, be a bomb that explodes and expands the universal spiritual truth into our lives? And I am really excited about this idea. So, what else did Vesta Brown say? She does a page really Before we can decide what shall follow victory, we must know what victory really is. And so she talks about the dictionary, the Webster Dictionary definition of victory. She talks about um, the assumptions we make about people who are different from us. There's a question that is a really good question for us to think about today when we think about the people we don't like, or the people we are excluding, or the people that we are criticizing as an identity group. What do these people with whom we have contended stand for? You and I think they stand for greed and aggression, for murder and enslavement, for an insatiable desire for power and aggrandizement. Do they see themselves in that light? Indeed, they do not. They see themselves a superior race to whom all things they desire belong. As a matter of course, they chafe with the sense of injustice at the hands of other nations. They feel they have been abused and defrauded. And it's always important, isn't it, to realize that just like we know people think things about us that are not the way we understand our own experience, we are making up a story about other groups of people that fit our narrative. So, setting this tone, um, and then she does some things that are trying to like make us realize again there is oneness, we are all created by the same, and so we are juggling where we the vision of what we want to see with different perspectives. And so let's see, on the left side of the page it says, does someone say, but these emotions in one person, meaning in me, could not precipitate a war? Like, because I see certain things, I cannot precipitate a war. No, of course not. But these human ideas and emotions are not limited to individual you or individual me. These ideas and emotions flourish in the souls of millions of people. And because of that, we did precipitate a war. It's your war, it's my war, it's all of our wars, because enough of us were harboring these false beliefs or in these elements of hatred or conquering or greed or whatever that evidence themselves in physical form as war, as discrimination, as climate change or global warming, all of the things we say that we don't believe are the way that divinity could be expressing in the earth. Yeah, because millions of people are doing a thing or believing a thing makes the war yours and mine. Not just the, 1,000 people who are in elected political positions around the globe, or 10,000 out of 8 billion. It's not them that are creating the war, it's us. We create the war in our individual lives at our individual expressive level, and we create the world, the war in our communities. We create the war between people of different racial and ethnic groups. We create the war between people from different sexual orientation and gender identity groups. We are creating the war in our own individual mind, and collectively that is the result. And that is just fact. And so if we can create the negative war, can you even imagine what it would be like if we created in the same way love and harmony and unity in the world? Because we consciously choose to do so. Now, let's go to Vesta Brown because I'm realizing how much I love this article. And on the right hand side, and as we, by free will choice, weed out hate and replace love, as we, by free will choice, let go of revenge and claim loving kindness, as we, by free will choice, uproot bitterness and replace it with forgiveness, we shall not be troubled if for a time the old fruits cling, not quoting, but paraphrasing some other things that she wrote. We will not be troubled if for a time the old fruits cling, because we know that we have planted the seed for the new fruit. Continuing on the right. So, permanent world peace is the true victory of a Christian world over war. Such peace must first be born in the hearts of Christ-loving people everywhere. For while in harmony and conflict rule the individual, they must rule the individual's life, and through ruling the individual life of people, then that builds and grows and connects into the total world. But what about the people who are expressing the concentrated distillation of mankind's wrong thinking? Shall we let them ruin the world? Now, I love I I I love what she writes here, and I'm going off screen just in case when I go to move this up, it goes everywhere like it did before. And I love this. Shall we let them ruin the world? The ones who have intention to have greed and power. Do we just let them do it? Here's what Vesta Brown says. Vesta Brown wrote on the right hand side, shall we just let them ruin the world? Well, if you spill a bottle of ink on a rug, do you just stand idly by and let it ruin the entire rug? Of course not. You immediately try to counteract the stains and return the rug to its former perfection. But it's not the rug you're battling with, it is the stain. So at the moment, even now, as we are embroiled in the aftermath of total war, we who follow the Christ consciousness or the example of Christ must remember it is not mankind, it is not humanity, but rather the dark stain of prolonged collective wrong thinking, which has become concentrated in an evil ideology called Nazism, fascism, militarism, etc. I'm being quiet to let you think about that for a minute. 1945. And so much of that could be alive and could be used right now, today. So, as you can tell, I loved this issue of the Science of Mind magazine, November 1945. And at the end of the article, here is what Vesta Brown wrote. And I'm going to use it to end our show today. and invite you to definitely do your own shadow work, as Shay says, for me to do my shadow work, for all of us to look beyond and stop pointing fingers at other people and look at what we individually are doing to contribute to the current and existing collective experience, or are we contributing and actively engaging in ways that brings forth a new collective experience? Vester Brown writes, now, and every time we pray, we must decree peace, permanent and just peace, first within ourselves, then within our nation, and thus through ourselves and our country to individuals, nations, and peoples throughout the world. We are all heirs of God. We are all heirs of God, and peace is our heritage. We are all heirs of God, and peace is our heritage. That is the thought I want to leave you with this week from the Science of Mind and Spirit Saturday Morning Conversations. You can find the November 1945 issue of the Science of Mind magazine in the Science of Mind archives. And I want to encourage you to absolutely go and download this issue. There are a couple of additional articles that are just as powerful as this one and as the editorial. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. But that's it for this week on Science of Mind and Spirit Saturday Morning Conversations. See you next Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time right here on the New Thought Media Network.